record, reaching the end zone 6 times in one game. This season, Emmitt Smith, with 23 trips to the end zone, is one shy of John Riggins' record. As Tom Jackson found out, Emmitt is, by all counts, a scoring machine.
Automatic.
5 yards and in, you in the Emmitt zone.
That's the pay dirt, man. We alert the line that he can go any place.
You get on the man and push hard as you can, and Emmitt will find the zone.
There's definitely an attitude. You have to have the attitude. I'm going to be the man on this team to put this ball in the end zone.
That Emmitt Smith scores touchdowns is not unusual. The fact that he saves each touchdown ball is. Touchdown after touchdown after touchdown, it's the same routine.
Now, come on, touchdown, throw the mic.
He usually catches me in his eye and flicks the ball to me at some point during on the sidelines, and I go back and I immediately put it in the trunk.
The equipment manager gives it back to him, and he ships it here, and we take it and store it in the warehouse here.
Here is Pensacola, Florida. Here is Emmitt Inc. Here is where the marketing of Emmitt Smith is at its peak. Here is where just a portion of those touchdown balls are housed.
What do you plan to do with them?
Right now, I'm not going to do anything with them. I'm going to just get them laser printed up and get all the stats and stuff put on them. I also thought about putting together, I'm not going to share my ideas on it too. Somebody was in the top of my ideas and wanted to do the whole thing. But I got some pretty good ideas now, what I will do with the football, though. I do plan on selling them, and not necessarily all of them, because there's a few of them that I would like to keep myself. And perhaps I sell maybe 90% of them or more.
4 of the touchdown balls are no longer in Smith's possession.
Bill Bakes, Kevin Smith, and Alfredo Roberts were hurt in action. I wanted to give them a ball from me, telling them how much I appreciate them.
That's something that I'll never forget. I've got it as one of my very special balls. It's something that is so valuable to me.
As I look at the ball, I say, you know, this guy's probably going to be in the Hall of Fame, and he's going to be like a limited edition painting. This ball is going to be one of many that nobody can get their hands on.
That means a lot. I mean, you know, me in the situation I'm in right now with my Achilles tendon, I mean, who knows? I mean, hopefully I'll come back, but it may be the last game I ever played in.
The final ball is in Alaska, where Smith vacationed this offseason, encountering a Vietnam veteran who was also a fan.
Gave me a Medal of Honor and said, just do me one favor. When you score your first touchdown, do it for the veterans. Do it for the people that couldn't make it home. And I said, I will do that. I said, better yet, I'll give you the touchdown ball that I scored my first touchdown in. And so be it, man. This year, 1995, man, my first carry of the year.
Emmitt Smith's first carry of the season is one for the books. He's gone. Emmitt Smith out in front. Touchdown, Dallas.
60-something yards for the touchdown. And, you know, he has that ball. I sent him that ball, and he received that ball on Veterans Day. It was sweet.
There will be approximately 2.2 tons of incentive clause money on the line when the Pro Bowlers are announced. Not only is it worth a few extra bucks, but a free trip to Hawaii. The Pro Bowl selection show Thursday night, 7:30 Eastern here on ESPN. Emmitt will be there, trust me. Still to come, what do the Buffaloes, UCLA, and the NFL have in common? A special dose of Did You Know? That's coming up in a minute. This is SportsCenter.
15 more minutes of game day. 15 more minutes of game day. 15 more minutes of game day. 15 more minutes of game day.
Did you know that Rick Neuheisel was the last player to rush for a one-point conversion in a regular season NFL game?
Less than 36 hours before the NFL postseason kicks off, the league and the Philadelphia Eagles and the city of Philadelphia are all very concerned about a possible outbreak of snowball disruption at the Vet, such as the one at Giant Stadium last Saturday. The Lions-Eagles game is the late game Saturday, but as of late this afternoon, a great deal of snow still remained in the seating area at Veterans Stadium. Even as city workers were continuing their efforts to remove that snow, while the NFL monitors that removal very closely. The city of Philadelphia is considering banning the sale of alcohol at the game.
I certainly hope the fans in Philadelphia don't respond the way the fans in New York did. I don't think they will. That was not a good scene for anybody in New York, and I'm real confident the fans are going to be really into the game here because we got a great shot to advance in the playoffs. Everyone's real excited in Philadelphia, and I think it's a whole other atmosphere.
Beer sales for a recent near-capacity game of the Vet totaled $100,000 gross. The profits are shared by the city and the Eagles. Currently, Commissioner Paul Tagliabue is expected to attend that Eagles-Lions game at the Vet. No, yes, the game on the field. Coach Ray Rhodes has left the decision up to Randall Cunningham, and the club expects their highly paid backup quarterback not to be at the game, but rather with his wife, who is due to give birth. Privately, the club officials are very angry at Cunningham's decision. If Cunningham is not there, Rodney Pete's backup will be second-year quarterback Jay Fiedler, who has yet to throw an NFL pass but is a distant relative of the late conductor Arthur Fiedler. Back on the topic of snowballs, yesterday we reported that 15 people phoned the New York Giants to identify a highly publicized snowball thrower from last Saturday's game at Giant Stadium. 26-year-old Jeffrey Lang, who is not a season ticket holder, he was charged last night facing a court date. Among the callers who identified Lang in hopes of claiming a $1,000 reward, a woman reported as Lang's ex-wife, but Lang's attorney said his client never married. Lang's in the middle of his 15 minutes of infamy.
I can't believe that I've been singled out. It's turned my life upside down. I can't go to work. I can't go out. People showing up at my house, phone calls all day, all night. My family life is just horrible. I have remorse for the Giants and the San Diego Chargers. I feel bad for, the equipment manager. I feel bad for the other players that were injured. I feel bad for the fans who are losing their tickets.
And the issue in the late game on Sunday, the Colts and the Chargers, might come down to experience. The Colts are in the playoffs for the first time in 8 years, and only 12 of their players have any postseason experience, while the Chargers still have 19 starters from last year's Super Bowl. But the Chargers are alive this year because of their Week 16 last-second victory at the RCA Dome. The game neither team holds up as an example of their potential of what they hope to be able to do this weekend.
We didn't exactly set the field on fire when we played Indianapolis the last time. So, this is just another step that we have to take, and we have to make sure we're focused, and I think everyone will be.
If we'd have executed better, knowing what we were doing a little bit better when the game first started, that game could have been ours. So just really make sure that we're focused in and not have any of those type of mental errors. And, I think the physical errors, drop balls and the bad passes will take care of themselves, and I think we'll be an improved team this time when we play them.
Meanwhile, up in Buffalo, you've got Bryce Pop, the dominating defensive presence for the Bills this year, and Pop has dominated the voting for NFL Defensive Player of the Year. An overwhelming selection tonight, Pop with 73 votes. Second place going to Greg Lloyd of the Steelers. He had 5 votes. That Buffalo-Miami game on Saturday has yet to sell out. The NFL has extended the deadline until tomorrow. 10,000 seats still remaining after a record one-day sale today of 10,000. The game may not be televised locally, even with the arch-rival Dolphins in town. Some of the Bills players can't believe that the local folks may not be able to see this game.
To be up against a team like Miami, who the city of Buffalo just really hates, and not to have it be a sellout, it's something that a lot of the players around here are probably still scratching their heads about.
Kind of shocked, kind of surprising that it's not going to be sold out because it is here at home, and one thing we need is our fans, the 12th man behind us a lot. Anytime you can play on your own turf where you got your crowd behind you and you got your weather, it's a better atmosphere.
Now a player who's sitting and watching, Boomer Esiason. First thing today, he said he wanted to play for a contender next year, a team that could protect him better than the Jets did this year. And later, Boomer said he did not mean to rule out returning to the Jets. Esiason is an unrestricted free agent.
I'll be able to pick a team that will be able to protect me a little bit better. But, the way I look at it is that I'm 34 years old right now, and you have a certain window that your athletic ability is still available to you.
After his first comments were interpreted as meaning he wanted away from the Jets out of New York, Esiason said no, the Jets may still have a shot at him. He still might want to return.
And I see where I am quoted as saying that I want to play a couple more years, which is correct. And then it says he doesn't want to do it with the New York Jets. I can only tell you that I've never said that. While I would like to return to the New York Jets, criteria has to be met, and the first of those criteria would be that they would have to want me back.
Boomer Esiason currently working for CBS Television Sports as an analyst for college football bowl games during the postseason. Well, the baseball team in New York got themselves a starting left fielder today. Tim Raines, a $3.7 million player, the 4th leading base stealer of all time, traded by the White Sox to the Yankees in return for future considerations.
It's something about being in Yankee pinstripes, I feel, as a professional ball player, to play not only in Yankee Stadium, but play in a uniform that great players of all time played in. And to be a part of that is something that I'm looking forward to get an opportunity to lead off again, to be the veteran player for a team that I really feel has an excellent chance to win it all.
36-year-old Tim Raines playing left, hitting leadoff. His 95 not spectacular, but it was still better than the composite season that three different leadoff men, Luis Polonia, Wade Boggs, and Bernie Williams, put up for the Yankees. A relief pitcher on the move today, Doug Jones, free agent, signing with the Cubs, giving them a closer to replace Randy Myers, who went to the O's, where Jones pitched last year and saved 22 of 25 chances. Doug Jones is 38 years of age. Charlie Hayes, free agent, late of the Phillies, signing tonight with the Pirates. 276 last year, 85 RBIs, and one of the top men with the glove at third base in the National League. At this hour, there's NBA basketball, slumping Miami, streaking Indiana. Rick Smits finding Dale Davis down low. Pacers on a 17-5 run. Reggie Miller, reverse layup, moving past Rex Chapman and then some. Pacers led by 4 early on. This game now into the second quarter. Indiana in a dinner time start with an 11-point lead over the Heat. The Heat 0-13 all-time at Market Square. Alonzo Mourning missing his 10th straight game. He will miss at least another week with that foot injury. As we continue, we will have the story of Wake Forest Tim Duncan. Looks like a lottery pick now for sure, but we'll see just how close he came to not realizing his potential early on. And we'll have news from the Fiesta Bowl. Lawrence Phillips talking about his reemergence into the starting lineup for #1 Nebraska.
Tomorrow on ESPN, SportsCenter makes way for a big-time bowl triple header. The action kicks off at 1 p.m. Eastern as Florida A&M takes on Southern in the Heritage Bowl. At 5:30, the Independence Bowl, Louisiana State clashes with Michigan State. And at 9, the Holiday Bowl, Colorado State and Kansas State. Whether it's the peach on Saturday, the sugar on Sunday, or the citrus on Monday, none of the 18 other bowl games are as appetizing as Tuesday's Tostitos Fiesta Bowl. As always, the press is eating this one up, and for once, I'm not talking about the free food dished out at Media Day. Can the Huskers and Gators handle America's appetite for hype? Here's Mike Tirico and company among the masses in Tempe.
Susie, thank you from Tempe, where in that stadium exactly 1 month from now, the Super Bowl will be underway. And in 5 days, college football's championship to be decided in the Tostitos Fiesta Bowl between Nebraska and Florida. Joined here on our set across the street by Craig James and Lee Corso. Thoughts from the guys on this day momentarily. We are T-minus 5 days from the national championship game. Both teams practiced and met the media today. More on the media gathering in a second. First, this season of off-the-field news continued for Nebraska again yesterday when a former player sued Tom Osborne and other university officials for injuries suffered, the former player claims, when another player hit him in the face days before the 1994 Orange Bowl. Now, that received barely any attention at Media Day across the street. Steve Cyphers tells us that at this Media Day, Lawrence Phillips drew the biggest crowd.
For every second of 60 Minutes, Lawrence Phillips answered reporters' questions, several of which dealt with the September assault of a former girlfriend. He wouldn't go into detail about the incident, but he did say that what hurt him most was that his actions hurt so many others, that he did write a letter of apology to the victim, and that anger therapy is teaching him to control his problem.
I knew that I had a quick temper, and that's always what people called it. Oh, you know, he has a quick temper, and I was always, you know, ready to go whenever something happened. So I knew that I had a quick temper, but it was never regarded as an anger problem. I mean, referred to as an anger problem.
Phillips adds he's learned that he's not the only one who has trouble controlling anger, and that he may know others living in the same foster home in which he was raised in California.
I don't plan to be a spokesman. I plan on, you know, just talking to a few people here and there that I plan to go back and talk, because I know a lot of people that are in a boys' home that are that probably have this anger problem, which is probably not as serious, but it grows. And I think that getting to it at an early age is the best thing.
There was talk of football and Phillips' return to the starting lineup, a return every Husker, even Amon Green, who was the starting I-back, seemed to embrace.
You know, with the things that, you know, happened to him this year, unfortunately, which was terrible, which was a shock to everyone, and with him starting, I think it's a good thing for him.
To be honest with you, I don't remember him doing the things he did last week back in August.
Yeah, I seen Lawrence make a run
and it caught my attention. It's something that seemed like he made that one extra step that he wasn't making in August or wasn't making when he came back, and that one extra step took him 60 yards.
That extra step wasn't there when Phillips returned from his suspension against Iowa State. Disgusted by his performance, he went to the tape to watch the Oklahoma State game where he ran for 153 yards. He realized he wasn't as decisive as he had been in that first game. He made the adjustment, and Mike, he says that has made all the difference.
Steve, thank you. I observed Phillips from afar as well. He handled himself in a very tough spot with a lot of maturity today. You guys were there at Media Day. Who were some of the popular people on this day, Lee?
Well, Mike, on the Florida sideline, Jeremy Foley, the athletic director, he was most popular with the press. The question, Steve Spurrier and his contract. I know for a fact that Steve and Jeremy have talked for the last week or two about the new contract. I would not be surprised if Spurrier didn't sign a new contract around $900,000 a year. Not bad for a scratch golfer that can play a little golf, my friend.
And Arizona Cardinals job open here. There's a lot of folks in this city that are trying to invite him to come here and be the head football coach for the NFL team. I'll tell you this, though. If you're a Gator fan, you can relax, because I talked to several players on their team today, and they were all talking about the depth that they have. They're 2 and 3 deep at every position. They forced themselves to play better. Spurrier has built a foundation there, regardless of whether he's the coach or somebody else comes in there, for there to be success. When you have competition within a ball club like they have at Florida, you're going to win football games.
You guys back with Chris to talk more about this on the kickoff show after SportsCenter. Reminder, New Year's Day, College Game Day, the story of Tommy Frazier. Get to know him. Walk on to star Chris Doering. Where does Northwestern's great season compare with great sports stories? New Year's Eve is Champagne and Auld Lang Syne. New Year's morning is Alka-Seltzer and College Game Day. Remember, the day of the Fiesta Bowl. The Hour SportsCenter will be all over that, and a special half-hour College Game Day with the last word before kickoff.
This bowl update is brought to you by Midas, the Midas way, the way it should be.
Still ahead on SportsCenter, tonight's cover story, Miami's angry young man, Brian Cox, and what makes him tick. But up next, we'll go under the boards with John Feinstein and see the method to Rick Barnes' madness.
You can catch your college hoops on ESPN tonight. The Rainbow Classic from Honolulu continues with a battle of undefeateds. Top-ranked UMass and North Carolina State are 2 of only 13 Division I teams with perfect records. Tip-off 12:30 a.m. Eastern Time. If you can't wait till 12:30, they'll be hooping on the deuce at 10:30. More Rainbow Classic as number 18 Missouri runs with USC. And if you'd rather take your shots in Vegas, number 19 Michigan goes after its 8th straight win as they take on UNLV. Tip-off at midnight Eastern.
The number 1 team in college basketball again this week is UMass, and when you consider how far the program at Amherst has come since John Calipari arrived 7 years ago, the Minuteman story becomes all the more remarkable, as John Feinstein reports tonight from under the boards.
The top-ranked college basketball team in America this week is the University of Massachusetts. Let's stop for a moment and consider what a remarkable achievement that is. When John Calipari became the coach in 1988, no one even wanted the job. UMass was arguably the worst Division I program in America in the 80s. Now it's one of the 10 best programs in the country year in and year out. And yet other coaches take little shots at Calipari all the time. All right, he looks a little bit like a Ricky Pitino wannabe with the slick back hair and the expensive suits. But the fact is, he gets good players, he coaches them well, he'll take on all comers at all times, and last year, he threw his best clutch player, Michael Williams, off the team because he thought it was in the best interest of the kid and the team. Tom Osborne might want to take note of that before he sends Lawrence Phillips out for the Fiesta Bowl next week. Give Calipari credit. He's a good coach and a good guy, too. Sometimes you just don't know what you've got, even when you've got it. Consider Dave Odom, the Wake Forest coach, who was smart enough to recruit Tim Duncan 3 years ago. He ran into Bill Foster, the Virginia Tech coach, that summer. Foster had seen Duncan play in a tournament in Germany. He said to Odom, "Boy, you've got a real gem in that kid Duncan." "Yeah," Odom said, "but he's an unpolished gem. We'll probably redshirt him this year, and maybe by his junior year he can really help us." Foster said, "No, I don't think so. I think he's going to play this year and be a lottery pick." When Odom saw Duncan in practice in October, he knew what Foster was talking about. Duncan had improved so much that not only did he start as a freshman, but by the end of his sophomore year, he would have been the first pick, not just a lottery pick in the NBA draft. Just shows you what recruiting's all about. It's almost become a tradition in college basketball for Clemson to go undefeated through the month of December. It's because the Tigers' toughest competition is usually in the orange and white intra-squad game. Not this year, though. They played Miami, Minnesota, South Carolina, and they're undefeated. The Tigers have 7 freshmen and no seniors in their lineup. 2 of the freshmen, Andreas Cherkunas and Tom Weidman, may be stars someday. Look for Rick Barnes to build a team in the ACC that will do more than upset North Carolina with physical play. They'll pull real upsets this year and in the future. For ESPN, I'm John Feinstein. I'll see you next week under the boards.
Straight up on SportsCenter, Miami bad boy Brian Cox explains his do as I say, not as I do mantra. Can you really be a role model off the field if you're not one on it? Stay tuned.
In a sport of hard facts and bottom lines, we've got the figure of Brian Cox, a self-proclaimed role model. The Miami Dolphins linebacker has racked up over $38,000 in NFL fines in the last 3 years. As good a player as Cox is, 2 images of him endure: his uplifted fingers and his angry, spitting face. Each incident aimed at the fans of the Buffalo Bills. And with the cosmic irony that can be the NFL playoffs, Cox returns to Buffalo on Saturday, just 13 days removed from his last spectacle there. Tom Jackson talked to Cox several days after the fighting and spitting incident. Inside the head of Brian Cox, tonight's cover story.
Were you ashamed of anything that you did on Sunday?
No. I've been ashamed and embarrassed about some things that I've done in the past, but on Sunday, no shame at all. If coming to the rescue of my teammates, if playing the game as hard as I can, if spitting as to say I don't care what these people think and who says what about me, if there's something to be ashamed of in that, then I'm wrong. You know, but I'm not ashamed.
But you don't condone the spitting. I'm trying to understand if you condone the spitting.
I don't care less about the spitting. I didn't spit on anyone. I didn't spit in the stands. And I think the perception of what was said on your network, that I was spitting at reporters and fans and all, that wasn't the case. I just simply spit on the field as to say, to hell with all you people.
That emotion, when you were coming off the field, it looks like pure, unadulterated hatred.
I don't know if it's that strong, but I definitely have a strong feeling, a dislike towards those people and that stadium.
2 years ago, Buffalo was the site of Cox's infamous hand gesture to the fans after he was harassed during pregame warm-ups. He subsequently sued the league, saying he was forced to work in a racially hostile environment, a violation of the Civil Rights Act. The case was dismissed this July with a court ruling that Cox was the prevailing party, requiring the NFL to pay his legal fees. Although this last incident took place at Rich Stadium, his volatile behavior has emerged on other occasions throughout his 5-year career.
Is there something wrong with Brian Cox?
Not a damn thing. I'm just a person and a player that gives it everything that I have, plays as hard as I can so I can put food on the table for my family and take care of my family. And I love what I'm doing. I love and respect my teammates. And if you bother them, you have to bother me. If that's wrong, I don't want to be right.
Do you ever get feedback from other players when you're at the Pro Bowl on your actions during the course of the season?
No. I'm a guy that's basically a loner. I don't have a lot of friends around the league, and I like to keep it that way because there's so many fake people in this game. I don't like fake people. I like real people. I don't want any of you to get the wrong idea that fighting's okay. Fighting's not okay.
I have also heard you say, especially the kids, that you would like them to see you differently.
Yes. See me as a man that's trying to be a provider for his family. You know, football is a violent game. It's an emotional game. And when you see me fighting out there on the field, not saying that it's right, but that's me. And how can I sit and preach to kids about being themselves and being honest with themselves if I can't do it to myself? I'm who I am. Accept me for it. Realize that I'm going to be me. You don't see Brian Cox beating his wife. You don't see Brian Cox getting in ballroom fights. You don't see Brian Cox getting into any of those illegal things. So therefore, I am a role model. I'm taking a lot of abuse down here right now, but when it starts to get to my kids, it becomes personal. My 12-year-old, I sit her down and I say, babe, look, this is what's happening. You know, like a radio station down there said, made some comments that I was gay and my wife was a lesbian and I'm gonna marry a man next month. And she gets real about that stuff at school. And she comes home and she's crying for probably 3 or 4 days. And I sit her down and I just say, look, everything will be okay. I'm not gay, your mom's not a lesbian, and I'm not married another man. You know, but I can laugh about it now, but I was so mad when that came out that I had to laugh about it. And so it get to the point where I get tired of her having to defend me to people at the school. And lately, yesterday, she came home laughing finally. She said, Dad, they said Dolphins ought to cut you and get rid of you. So she came home laughing. She said, Dad, you got a rough life. I say, well, I asked, I said, well, do you love me? She said, yeah. I say, well, everything's all right.
When Brian Cox and the Dolphins return to Buffalo on Saturday, they will be traveling with extra police protection. What about Cox? Well, his teammate J.B. Brown offered this advice. His best bet would be to keep his helmet on. Reminder, you can spend tonight with the Michigan Wolverines and the Aggies of Texas A&M in the Alamo Bowl, which comes along in just over 30 minutes, right after the weekend kickoff show with Chris Fowler and the gang in Tempe. Chris?
That's right, Bob. With the game 5 days away, the Huskers and the Gators both trying to juggle all the aspects of a national championship game. Coming up, we'll take you to Media Day as Coach and the Pony meet both teams. We'll talk about this game and the other bowls coming up after SportsCenter.
New Year's resolution number 1, must watch the Outback Bowl on ESPN. 2 top 20 teams clash in this Thrifty Car Rental Bowl Week New Year's Day matchup. 15th ranked Penn State, led by legendary coach Joe Paterno, march into Tampa to do battle with 16th ranked Auburn and quarterback Patrick Nix. It's Tigers versus Lions at 11 a.m. Eastern, New Year's Day, only on ESPN.
SportsCenter is brought to you by the Kodak Color Watch system. Great film developing begins where you see the Color Watch seal.
The Miami Heat have lost 7 of the last 9 without Alonzo Mourning. He did not play tonight, and that is reason for Mark Jackson to be smiling as he dishes to Antonio Davis. And Jackson then with the dish to Eddie Johnson, who nails the 3. And at the half, the Pacers are all over the Miami Heat, 54-38. The third quarter is just underway.
Couple quick notes. Dennis Green will be back to coach next year, even though the Vikes missed the playoffs. And Danny O'Neal, who passed for a record 456 yards in last season's Rose Bowl, signs with the Anaheim Piranhas of the Arena Football League. That's a wrap for us. The next SportsCenter comes your way at 11:30 Eastern with Miller and Killer. For Bob Lee, I'm Susie Culver.
And I'm Charlie Steiner. We're not going to be here tomorrow. The Independence Bowl will be, so this is our chance to wish you a Happy New Year. The weekend kickoff show is next, live from Tempe. Chris Fowler. Chris?
To the Builders Square Alamo Bowl, Leland McElroy tries to make a heroic recovery. Tim Biakabatuka is set for the challenge of a very good Texas A&M wrecking crew defense. But Michigan can play some defense as well, ready for a collision in the Alamo Dome coming up shortly. Meanwhile, in Tempe, 5 days until the showdown for the national title. The Cornhuskers and the Gators facing the Mikes and the Scribes. Old hat for Nebraska, a new thing for Florida. Are they really as calm as they seem? Welcome to Sunset in the Valley of the Sun. Preparations continue for the national championship showdown. We are just across the street from Sun Devil Stadium. And welcome to our weekend kickoff show. Chris Fowler along with the coach Lee Corso and the Pony Craig James. We'll hear from these guys as we break down piece by piece this showdown for the national championship, and we'll talk about some other bowl games. But first, to Media Day. It's a tough thing to do. Take a break for final exams, for holidays, then reassemble on a neutral field, play a big game for a national championship. Cornhuskers have done it before. The Gators really have not. Steve Cypher's checked out how each team is handling it.
This generation of Huskers has grown up with this. Big media days before even bigger games. The site may be different this time, but for the third straight year, they're playing for the same stakes, a national championship. And they seem so comfortable with all of this that they arrived fashionably late to Thursday's session.
this is our third time in a row, and it's not, I don't know if you'd say it's old hat, but, you know, we've won it, we've lost it, we know how to prepare for it, and I think everybody's just real relaxed, and, you know, we're ready to go.
We've never played in a national championship type game, but I think we can reflect back on the SEC championships we've played in. You know, those games, too, the whole season was on the line, and, you know, that's a lot of pressure to be playing in.
We've been through it, and I know what it's like going through it your first time, and Florida's going through it their first time, so I think it gives advantage to us.
We're really scared because we haven't played in any big games all year, of course, but I don't know. You know, we've had our fair share of big games, and this is a lot bigger game for us as far as everything outside the game itself. But other than that, it's another big game, and we're going to treat it just like we have all year.
I think if we were playing kind of a Cinderella team that had not played in a lot of big games, or, you know, but Florida's now played in the Southeast Conference Championship playoff 3 years in a row, which are big games. They play Florida State every year and play Tennessee, and so I think it's more big game experience that's critical, and now we're just putting a different label on it. We're saying, well, this is a big game, but it's for the national championship.
Obviously, playing for #1 is all the difference in the world rather than playing for number 3 or 4. So we got a lot more at stake at this one, and I think our players realize that, and I think we'll be ready to play and coach about as well as we can.
We know what the hype about the national championship is about, and we know that we have to play 4 quarters of tough football to win this game, and we're not going in cocky or anything like that. We just want to go in here and play the best game that we possibly can.
We're here because, you know, we're the 2 best teams in the nation, and one of us, you know, after January 2nd will be the national champion.
If experience in a title game is an advantage, the Huskers have it. And with 25 straight wins, they've proved they have the skill. But when it comes to luck, well, in this game, Chris, the Fiesta Bowl, Nebraska is 0-4.
But those were games a long time ago in different Nebraska teams. In case you're wondering what players do as they wait and wait and wait for the game, video games. They say they're in the arcades and they're playing Sega Genesis. What do teams do to prepare for a bowl game before video games?
I don't know. Idea. Got in trouble.
Exactly.
Yeah, they still find time to do that, too. Hey, today at Media Day, it was really interesting. Nebraska was kind of like, you know, we've been there, we've done that, seen that, we're going to do it again. Very confident. Whereas Florida, they were trying to convince me we're going to do this, doing a lot of talking about what's going to happen down the road in the ball game. Not cocky, but just trying to talk about it down the road. The other thing they said was, hey, we get no respect. You guys out there give us no respect, and we're going to show you we deserve it.
Greg, what I sensed there was Nebraska players, business as usual. They expect to win this ball game. Florida, excitement, hoping to win. That's why I think it's very important for Florida to start off fast, because Nebraska can bomb them early. Nebraska has outscored their opponents 158-34. How do you like that, my friend?
Well, Florida outscored their opponents 150-58.
Holy mackerel.
You got me by 8 points.
And that's why I'm tired of hearing the no respect.
Yeah.
Come on, these are 2 undefeated teams that deserve to be here, and I think they've got ample respect. It's not just boring interviews at Media Day. When you get the pony and the coach, you turn them loose with some mini camps. What you get is players turning the interview tables, unveiling a new special teams dance, even explaining their tattoos.
Hey, hi, I'm Willie Rogers at the Fiesta Bowl here in Tempe, Arizona, the place where the Florida Gators will meet the Nebraska Cornhuskers.
We play better when we lose.
Calm. And I'm here, I'm going to interview Craig James.
There's drawbacks to what you do, there's drawbacks to what I do, and so you got to take the good with the bad.
Hey, you the one that'll pick a winner.
Figured, you know, Peterbilt, like the truck, you know, kind of, I guess they're supposed to be built kind of tough, so hopefully, you know, we can kind of be compared to that.
From your point of view, what chance do you think the Florida D-line has against the Nebraska offense line?
I hear they're going to have that center around play, you know, fake the snap, pick it up and go.
I wish, man.
The work ethic has been tremendous, and their focus has been unbelievable to me.
Yeah, you did. You got my name wrong. Yeah, you did. I'll just tease. You ain't getting sensitive, is you?
By the way, what barber college did you go to get that haircut?
Yeah.
But I will say this, you better have your hard hat on, because Nebraska offensive line will show up.
Hey, that's the perfect answer. I think so, too. We out of here with Willie Rogers from Tempe. Say, see y'all January 2nd, 6:30, baby.
You can see that self-amusement is really an important thing. It gets kind of boring waiting this many days to the kickoff. We're not quite out of here. We got a lot more coming up on the weekend kickoff show. We're going to talk about the Rose Bowl and focus on the running backs. Darnell Autry of Northwestern ready to take on the Trojan defense. Down in the Orange Bowl, Mark Edwards, is he the key man as the Irish battle the Seminoles? And we'll get back to the Fiesta Bowl and look at Nebraska's running backs and, Lee says, an underrated Gator ground game. All ahead.
Welcome back. The Weekend Kickoff Show continues with your host, Chris Fowler.
You want snack food? You can get it. Of course, the concession stands are empty at the moment. Everybody glued to their television set and watching this show. Welcome back to Tempe. You know, in 3 bowl games so far, the combined points scored 84 per game. Will that continue? Well, 2 very good defenses set to do battle in the Builders Square Alma Bowl, A&M and Michigan. For a preview, we join Ron Franklin and Mike Gottfried down in San Antonio.
Thanks, Chris. Here in San Antonio tonight, number 14 against number 19. 2 awfully good football teams with great tradition. But the big question mark this week has been Leland McElroy, the sprained ankle. Will he be able to go? In fact, yesterday, the Michigan coaching staff said, we think the Aggies are fudged. We think he's going to play. If he is not able to go tonight, here are the 3 young men who will replace him. And look at how much they have done this year. Not a great deal. Sir Parker, DeAndre Hardiman, and Eric Bernard, all 3 are freshmen. Yesterday, in talking with McElroy, though, he was very confident that if he can't go, these 3 youngsters will perform well in his stead.
They know that I have a lot of confidence in them, and they've been around me the entire season, and they've gotten some playing time this season, and they know how the situation is, and they know the magnitude of this game. So I think they're going to go out there and they're going to play hard. And regardless if I play or not, I think if we come together as a team and play well, then our chances are pretty good.
Mike Gottfried, the question to you is an 80% Leland McElroy better than using these 3 healthy youngsters? What do the Aggies do?
Well, I think they have to go with the young freshman, Ron. The injury happened 10 days ago, so you really can't change your offense in that period of time, but you can add some new wrinkles. And R.C. Slocum and his staff expect these freshmen to play like upperclassmen now. It's the end of the season. They'd like to get the same kind of effort Michigan got last year when they got Ty Wheatley hurt. Tim Biakabatuka stepped up, did the job.
That's right. So, Chris, hopefully he will be able to play, but right now it is very, very doubtful. Let's go back to you in Tempe.
All right, Ron, thank you very much. And, of course, speculation, because he is a junior, will Leland McElroy return next year? You said last night he'll sit down and talk about it with R.C. Slocum and his family after the season. But take a look at the talent who will play in the inaugural season of the Big 12. Troy Davis, the 5th 2,000-yard rusher in history. David Thompson, the underrated Cowboy. Byron Hansbrough, we saw him last night score 4 touchdowns in the bowl game. McElroy. And there were 4 more 1,000-yard rushers among teams heading to the Big 12 conference next year. Craig, I think it's the greatest collection potentially of running back talent in any conference in history.
You talk about young, talented football players. 6 sophomores on there, 5 juniors, 2 of them freshmen, Ricky Williams and Amon Green from Nebraska. These are guys that are going to elevate that conference to being the top conference in America. I believe in order to be successful, and all coaches do out there now, you've got to have balance on offense. Unless you're Nebraska, you can just steamroll everybody. But these running backs are going to allow coaches like Rick Neuheisel out there, Bill Snyder at Kansas State, and down at University of Texas, John Mackovic, the opportunity to have true balance on offense. It's going to be spectacular, the power that they have in the Big 12.
Well, speaking of the Big 12, you know, there's recent rumors about Texas pulling out of the Big 12. Well, we checked it out. Because of the academic situation and the compromise, Texas is in the Big 12. In fact, the Texas athletic director, the Lost Dodds, today at practice had a Big 12 sweatshirt on. They're in the state.
In your mind, that seals the deal.
Absolutely, that seals it.
Terrific. Okay, meanwhile, the Rose Bowl, Northwestern, are they going Hollywood? Visiting Disneyland out there and meeting Charlton Hester, the former Wildcat. They're on Jay Leno tomorrow night. What's up with the Wildcats? The latest, Mark Schwartz in Los Angeles.
Holy Moses! It's Charlton Hester!
For Northwestern alum Charlton Heston to part the waters of the Red Sea, to turn them purple, that's child's play. But for the Wildcats to reach the Rose Bowl during Heston's lifetime, now that's a miracle. Heston just may be the marquee alum of a Northwestern theater department that's also produced Anne Margaret, Tony Randall, and Warren Beatty. But there's a new star rising in Evanston, and he runs the 40 faster than all of the others. Darnell, have you met Charlton yet?
No, I haven't met him yet. I saw him from over there, and he was shaking hands, but I haven't met him yet.
What do you hope to say to him, and what do you hope he says to you?
Advice, as much advice as he can give me.
Effort, focus counts as much or more than talent.
Would you rather be doing what he does or what Emmitt Smith does?
I'd probably, well, physically I'd rather do what he does, but I guess, well, I'd probably do what he does, probably more so.
Who's your role model? Is it Emmitt Smith or is it Lawrence Fishburne?
It's probably more Lawrence Fishburne than Emmitt Smith. I think I can't play football forever, but I sure can give it a whirl in the acting field.
Have the casting people called you?
No, not yet. Not yet, and I'm hoping that all this exposure, hopefully something could come out of this, but if not, you know, no big deal. I got the game coming up.
Ah, yes, the game. Autry will try to make it 13 straight with 100 or more yards on New Year's Day, but his week would not have been complete without a chance to meet Mr. 10 Commandments himself.
Hey, this is a real thing. It's real. This is the highlight of my trip. Absolutely.
Could it be fortuitous for him to be in Los Angeles right now as he's hoping for his career in theater?
As the old lady said about the chicken soup, it wouldn't hurt.
Theater career down the road for Darnell Autry. We'll have to see if they can part the Trojan defense as easily as Moses can part the Red Sea. No special effects when you got in the football field. No acting certainly for Mr. Autry, but certainly that Northwestern defense, that's not special effects either.
Well, Chris, Northwestern won the Big Ten title the old-fashioned way, in the Big Ten way. They ran the ball very effectively, and they played great defense. That's the key. Aggressive defense forces fumbles. They were terrific at it. Second thing, pursuit against Notre Dame here. Inside out, wonderful. Forced turnovers, and we saw this game. This turned the ball game over around at Iowa. The guy went all the way to the touchdown for the play. Northwestern plays great defense, especially in the Big Ten. They gave up 11 points per game, and they used to be really bad. Craig, in the 80s, they lost 34 straight games.
They're giving up an 11 per possession.
I mean, I'm telling you, would they come a long way or not, baby?
Yes, so they have. Now, let me tell you about the reason they've come a long way. They have a secondary back there that is extremely talented. I always believed that in order to be good on defense, you had to have a defense that had a secondary that would come up and hit you. A guy named Chris Martin was really special this year. He was placed in front of a lot of these receivers. Derek Mays held under 100 yards. Look at Hayes and Toomer from Michigan, Bobby Ingram from Penn State. All of those receivers are outstanding, quality guys that truly could have been individual All-Americans, but they did not get off against Northwestern. Held to no touchdowns. That's saying a lot about your defense, especially that secondary.
And the point being they have to face Keyshawn Johnson, who doesn't believe that any man can cover him. So Martin against Keyshawn Johnson, a matchup to keep an eye on. We're going to keep an eye on the matchup in the Builders Square Alamo Bowl between Corey Pullig and a Michigan defense that can be very confusing. A major challenge for him. Countdown to that game and more coming up. In Miami, where the Seminoles are getting set to battle the Irish, the temperatures have been more like South Bend than Tallahassee. Chilly temperatures. Is that going to lend itself to great defense? You want to know why Florida State has been the NCAA's best bowl team ever, 10 straight wins? Defense, not Bobby Bowden's high-scoring offense. The last 7 games, each opponent has failed to score 20 points against Florida State in a bowl game. This year's group is kind of a no-name group. They only have 1 All-ACC player on defense, 6 on offense. So maybe it's not a vintage defense, and they better strap it up against that Irish ground game.
Well, the Irish ground game, every time we watch these guys in big key ball games, at least under Lou Holtz, he's had the fullback that has been very active in the ball games. Key player in key big-time ball games, and it goes back a long ways. You can look at the roster of these guys at the fullback position and say, we'll start with the big man here. Jerome Bettis, he would take it to you. Ray Zellers, these guys were all nasty runners. We showed this highlight 1,000,000 times to you. This year, it's been Mark Edwards. Mark Edwards, to me, is the kind of player that can go out. He gets around 100 yards per ball game. He sets the tempo, the same kind of tempo that the other 2 guys did, and he allows Lou Holtz and the game plan and the play calling to go out and say, we're going to run the fullback draw, we're going to run the screens to him, we can hand him the ball anywhere on the field, and he will provide a constant, consistent running game.
Craig, he better run a lot. That fullback better run a lot, because when Notre Dame lost quarterback Ron Paulus to injury and suspended running back Randy Kinder, they lost 2,662 yards and 21 touchdowns for the Florida State game. I don't care how good Lou Holtz is. He can't overcome that kind of a loss and beat Florida State.
I think Seminoles in a big game often comes down to red zone offense. 54 touchdowns, only 3 field goals this year for the Seminoles when they get inside that red zone. They virtually have given up attempting field goals with Scott Bentley struggling. If they have to kick one, if it's a close game, that could be trouble. Meanwhile, in the Sugar Bowl, an interesting matchup. two excellent defenses, Virginia Tech and Texas. You got one team in Texas that really played with a coach on the hot seat all season long and responded with a tremendous Southwest Conference championship season. Another team in Virginia Tech, perhaps they were not thinking about an Alliance Bowl bid at the start of the season. They definitely weren't thinking about it after starting 0-2, but they bounced back. They got those 9 wins. Back to the Longhorns defense. Tony Brackens is a guy that gets a lot of pub from us, but you like another guy that doesn't get a lot.
I like this big guy they got in the middle. Texas nose guard Chris Akins is 6'1", 292 pounds. And let me tell you something. You better double team him if you want to make an inch in the middle against Texas. Now, let's take a look at him here in action. The guy is so big and so strong. Watch him here. Akins will step right in the middle, right there. Watch him. He'll stuff the center, hit the guard, run over the guy, and make the tackle. Not bad. Now, you think he's strong? Watch him pick up McElroy. Kills him. This will be the lowest scoring game of all the bowl games. The reason? 2 very strong defenses. I think Texas wins it, but I think they win it with the forward pass.
No, I disagree with you. I think there's going to be a lot of points scored in this ball game. I do. I think Drunken Miller can lead Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech has a great defense, no doubt about that. I agree that Texas has a good offense, but this is a defense at Virginia Tech Texas is going to have to deal with. They have scored 6 touchdowns in the last 5 games, and they have 35 sacks in the last 7 games. They'll get to the quarterback, but I think sometimes these great defensive supposed games, you find a way that these offenses come out and they light it up. I think there'll be points put on the board.
I don't think so.
Given a month to prepare, so far in this bowl season, the offenses have been lighting it up. You know, Drunken Miller. That's a great name for New Orleans and the Sugar Bowl. If you kind of slur it, somebody's going to have a big party in Jackson Square on New Year's Eve. The bowl breakdown. Texas, one of 7 teams in the future Big 12 that are going bowling this year. Already the conference, if you count it as a conference already, is 2-0 with Kansas and Texas Tech winning. The Big 10 has 6 teams. The SEC also has 6. Those were the 2 conferences that had the best winning percentage in the regular season against non-conference foes. They square off 3 times in bowl games, Michigan State and LSU.
Michigan State's running back Scott Green is 5'10", 220. He's got quick feet, run over people. I think Michigan State's team upsets LSU with Green and Tony Banks, the quarterback.
Ohio State and Tennessee. A lot of people say that when you play a bowl game, if you're an underclassman, you have a chance to have your coming out party and your introduction for the Heisman Trophy. Peyton Manning's that kind of guy. As long as he gets production from Jay Graham on the ground, they have a chance.
And another matchup for the Big 10 team against SEC team, Penn State and Auburn in the Outback Bowl. The Lions are a little bit vulnerable in the secondary. They've been burned 4 times by 300-yard passers. Auburn has the balanced offense, but I think given the choice, the Tigers would like to throw the ball a lot against Penn State. We'll talk more about those bowl games as they approach. That one, of course, New Year's Day on ESPN. Coming up, we'll talk about the running backs in this game. A lot more ahead in our weekend kickoff show live from Tempe.
On January 28th, as the final seconds of Super Bowl 30 tick away, all the action could move from the field to your front door.
You've won $10 million from Publishers Clearinghouse.
January 28th, the Publishers Clearinghouse Prize Patrol could surprise you with $10 million live on TV right after the Super Bowl.
Thank you.
If you enter the Publishers Clearinghouse sweepstakes now, on Super Bowl Sunday, the biggest winner could be you.
Things aren't always what they seem. Sometimes you get more than you expect. Introducing the incredible i30. One look inside, and you'll be amazed at the spaciousness and attention to detail. In fact, the i30 has a larger interior than a Rolls-Royce Silver Spur. When was the last time you got more than you expected from a $30,000 luxury car?
They said a coach is like a father figure. Well, if he's anything like my old man, you better keep your big yap shut. Coach Dean Smith. Baddest coach in the ACC. Badder than old King Kong. Meaner than some ticked-off Mater D. Dino, when I say bad, I mean good bad. You know, like the kids. Capiche? Bad.
Welcome back to Tempe. You got to have some fresh squeezed lemonade to wash down all the chips and everything else being served up here. Have you noticed there's a title sponsor to the bowl game? Just in case you missed it, it is Tostitos. Back to the battle between the Cornhuskers and the Gators. We're going to focus now on the running backs. Nebraska, of course, has started 4 different I-backs, and they have Tommy Frazier, a guy who's basically another running back playing quarterback. But the Gators have another way to get the ball besides the option to their running backs.
Chris, Florida uses their running backs to throw the ball to them in the outside, to get outside, just like Nebraska does to run the option to get outside. Example here, watch this swing pass to Fred Taylor. He catches the ball. It's just like an option play. It's like a sweep play. Here's a draw play to Terry Jackson. They love this play right here. Now, everybody's talking about the Florida passing game, but let me tell you something very interesting. Florida averages running the ball over 30 times a game. They average over 5 yards per carry. Nebraska better be watching it, because I tell you, Florida could beat them running the football.
Absolutely. They got good running backs. Nothing really great in the backfield like a Lawrence Phillips or a Mon Green, but these guys can run the ball. You talk about running the football, you really have to go to Nebraska and you figure out how to run the option. This is a football team that has made a living year in and year out winning football games when they get to the outside. Tommy Frazier, as Chris said, is like a running back in the backfield. Watch your guard and tackle. They're going to wall off the inside there. Nobody gets down. You are stuck to the inside. Then Frazier's going to stretch the linebacker, get him out there, which allows your fullback and wide receiver to get on their men. Nobody is uncovered. And then no pursuit. Guard and tackle did their job. You have clean, easy running from Ahman Green. When you have players like he and Phillips and Nebraska's running backs, you're going to have good opportunities out there. It's very important if you're a defender at Florida this week, you get off your block, especially if you're a linebacker.
Problem is, that's just one thing. Then you got to cover the tight ends and pass patterns and cover those traps. If you recall the Orange Bowl, Nebraska beat Miami in the 4th quarter with those fullback traps, and they think that Florida's defense, that 4-4, cheats a little bit to the outside. Keep an eye on Nebraska trying to attack the middle of that defense. Speaking of attacking the defense, Tim Biakabatuka and Michigan. More yards this year for the Wolverines than any back in Michigan history. He's set to battle the wrecking crew. We're back in a minute.
Personality that distinguishes SportsCenter. A lot of people don't realize that we write virtually all our own stuff.
Jack, which sounds better? Good or good?
The second one?
Yeah, good, thanks.
We continue from the street fair. We promise there's going to be more folks and more excitement as the game builds. Still 5 days away down here in Tempe, but we're all about set for kickoff down in San Antonio, and we're going to have to see if a trend continues. You know, in the history of all bowl games all time, teams combined for 77 or more points just 11 times in the history of bowls before this year. This year so far, we are 3 for 3. Incredibly high-scoring games, an overtime game in the Las Vegas Bowl, Kansas's scoring fest on Christmas Day, and the game last night in the Copper Bowl. So far, they've averaged 84 points a game in bowls. So does the trend continue tonight? That's very interesting. Why do you think it's so high-scoring?
It stops tonight. Those are all mismatches. Those teams, one team is much better than the other one. You watch Michigan and Texas A&M. There will not be any of those scores in that game.
Yeah, but I think the scoring that you're looking at here, and the reason it's occurred is because all those teams with the big points, they had a lot of ground game in their offense. They could run the football, which sucked those defenses up, and then boom, hit them with a big pass.
But you think this is not a mismatch, and you say 121 points combined,
I say 61-60, but that's because it's a special game.
Quickly, what about the game tonight we're about to see from San Antonio?
Well, Chris, Michigan staff told me that the front line from A&M is the best 4 defensive linemen they played against a long time. Michigan's going to run right at them and then do exactly what you said. Play action over the top. Michigan beats Texas A&M with the long pass.
Yeah, I think Michigan beats Texas A&M, but I'm still not sold on A&M's wrecking crew defense. They haven't played that stellar defensive game that they've talked about all season. They have the talent, they have the potential to do that, but without Leland McElroy, puts all the pressure on Corey Pullick. Pullick has to read that Michigan secondary that confuses quarterbacks. It's going to be a lot of pressure on him.
RC kind of a chip on his shoulder. Not had success the last 3 bowl games. They've scored only 26 points combined. We are set. Texas A&M and Michigan, 2 great defenses, face off at the Alamo. Here's Ron Franklin, Mike Gottfried, and Mike Adamle.
Thanks, Chris.